Right, so seeing as I talked a little bit about how to grip the sabre and how it was done historically, I had to do a very brief one on gripping the longsword as well. So very simply, the sources for longsword, they either show this or they talk about this or they don't at all. Okay, so there are some sources where we can't really say how we're gripping the sword. There are some sources where they show it in the pictures, for example Fiore or Vardi, and there are some sources which actually talk about it in the text, for example the so-called Dobringer source. Very simply with a longsword you've got an option of you either grip between the cross and the pommel, or you grip the actual pommel or the end of the hilt itself. Okay? Generally speaking, it seems that this sort of grip was favoured with these types of pommels, and that's probably why that pommel developed into that shape. This is the so-called scent stopper pommel. And the advantage that that gives you, of course, is you've got a longer lever. So because your hands are further apart, you can move the end of the blade quicker, in theory. However, the so-called Dobringer source argues that by gripping between the pommel and the cross, it allows for freer motion and freer movement of the blade. So there are some people who argue that this is the superior way to grip a longsword. But the thing to remember is that whatever your opinion is, it's very clear that the masters in the 14th and 15th and 16th centuries didn't agree on the matter either, because you see some gripping it like this and some gripping it like that. So clearly I would say it's a matter of personal preference, and in my club I say to people, grip it how you want to grip it, whatever you're comfortable with. And the final sort of footnote to add on to the issue, I suppose, is the issue of what we call fingering the cross, which is not as dodgy as it sounds. It simply means putting the index finger across the front quillon. Generally speaking, this is a bit risky to do with a sword that doesn't have any kind of extra protection on the guard for your finger, because if the opponent's blade slides down, it can take your finger off, which is clearly not a good thing. However, we do know that it was done because it's shown in period artwork, period pictures. And what that does, it's a little bit like putting your thumb up the back with a sabre. What it does is it brings the point closer to being in line with the forearm, and it not only does it make for slightly snappier play because your finger is pulling against that cross, so you've got an extra point of leverage, but it also brings the point more easily in line in a conventional thrust. And that led to the development of the finger rings, and then you got the side rings and so on, and we end up with the rapier hilt. But I'll talk about that in another video. So essentially, medieval longswords, if we forget the fingering the cross issue, which I'll talk about later, medieval longswords, you either grip them between the cross and the pommel, or you grip the pommel itself. And they've each got advantages, and it's personal preference. Cheers.